Imagine trying to put a toddler down for an afternoon nap.
Okay, a stressful scenario on a good day.
Right, exactly.
Hmm.
But imagine doing it while literally less than 2 miles away, you've got Formula One cars screaming down a straightaway at like 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, that is quite the image.
It is. And honestly, that is the fundamental paradox we were dealing with today.
Yeah.
Because when you hear the words Yas Island, your brain probably summons a very specific, a sensory overloaded kind of image.
Oh, absolutely. You think of the roar of the engines at Yas Marina Circuit or, the neon reds over at Ferrari World.
Exactly. Or the massive indoor spectacle of Warner Bros. World. I mean, it is an environment that feels engineered, quite literally from the sand up, to be one of the most high-octane entertainment destinations on the planet.
Yeah, it's basically the architecture of adrenaline. I mean, the entire infrastructure of that specific part of the island is designed to process massive influxes of visitors.
Right. Tourists coming in and out.
Yeah, transient visitors. It's meant to give them an unforgettable, highly stimulated experience and then, send them home. It's a machine built for tourism.
Which brings us to the core thesis of our deep dive today. Because the question is, can you truly manufacture a forever neighborhood like a quiet, grounded place to actually raise a family from scratch inside a global tourist hub?
It's a massive challenge for urban planners, definitely.
It really is. So today we are analyzing a project called the Orchids, which is built by Aldar, and it's nestled right inside the broader Yas Acres community on Yas Island.
Right.
And just to be completely clear with you listening, we are not here to, read off a glossy brochure or promise you some magical return on investment.
No, absolutely not. That's not what we do.
Exactly. Our mission here is to take the source materials we've gathered and really tear them apart. We want to see if this project actually functions as a viable lifestyle choice or if the friction of living next to a tourist mecca is just, too high.
Yeah, and that word friction, that is the primary metric we need to evaluate here.
Unpack that a bit for us.
Well, when you are looking at family real estate in a rapidly evolving market like the UAE, you aren't just buying square meters of porcelain and drywall.
Right, you're buying much more than the physical structure.
Exactly. You are purchasing a microenvironment. You're buying a Tuesday morning commute. You're buying the acoustic profile of the neighborhood, and basically a 10-year trajectory of how your family will interact with the surrounding city.
Okay, I want to pull on that thread of the commute, actually, because the macro context of Yas Island is pretty fascinating when you look at the raw geography.
It really is. The connectivity is uniquely positioned.
Yeah, the sources map it out, and it feels heavily optimized for a very specific type of buyer.
Right.
I mean, we're looking at a 10-minute drive to Zayed International Airport,
Right.
a 20-minute drive to the Cultural District on Saadiyat Island, and then a 50-minute drive to Dubai.
And those aren't just arbitrary numbers. They dictate the psychological toll of a work week. Well, let's take that 10-minute proximity to Zayed Airport. Say you're a regional director who flies to Riyadh or London, like twice a month. A 10-minute commute to the terminal fundamentally changes your Sunday evening.
Oh, for sure. You aren't dreading the drive.
Exactly. It removes the anticipatory anxiety of a long highway commute, the unpredictability of traffic. It literally buys back hours of time with your kids.
That makes total sense.
But here's the brilliant part. Geographically, 10 minutes is just far enough away to fall outside the dominant flight paths. So you're shielding the family home from the acoustic bombardment of low-flying jets.
Wow, so you get the convenience without the noise pollution? That's a very fine line to walk. And then, the 50-minute drive to Dubai is arguably just as strategic.
Absolutely. It anchors a professional who operates across both Emirates.
Right, because you're positioned at the northernmost viable edge of Abu Dhabi. So you can tack into the commercial density of Dubai without forcing your family to actually live in the center of it.
It's a geographic hedge, essentially. You retain access to the two major economic engines of the country while retreating to a suburban sanctuary at night.
But, see, calling it a sanctuary feels like a bit of a stretch when you read the actual list of what surrounds it.
Fair point.
I mean, the source materials list, Yas Mall, Yas Marina, Yas Links Golf Course, Ferrari World, SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, Warner Bros. World, the Etihad Arena, and the Yas Beach Club.
It is a heavy-hitting list.
It's massive. Which brings me back to the nap time paradox I mentioned earlier. If I'm buying a family home, I don't want to fight concert traffic just to get a carton of milk, you know? How does the urban planning actually mitigate this?
Yeah, it requires looking at the island not as a single piece of land, but as a series of heavily compartmentalized zones.
Compartmentalized how?
Think of it like the bulkheads of a submarine. A submarine is designed so that if one compartment floods, the doors seal, and the rest of the vessel remains perfectly dry and functional.
Okay, I'm tracking with you.
The master plan of Yas Island operates on the exact same principle, but instead of water, we're talking about traffic, noise, and light pollution.
So it's like an acoustic and logistical bulkhead.
Fundamentally, yes. The planners intentionally clustered the high-intensity commercial and leisure corridors, the arenas, the tracks, the theme parks, onto specific edges of the island.
And they keep the residential stuff separate.
Right. They built dedicated, massive arterial highways feeding directly into those entertainment zones. Tourists and event-goers funnel into these designated areas, they park in these subterranean megastructures, and they leave without ever needing to cross into the residential zones.
Oh, wow. So the road networks are actually designed to pull transient traffic away from the leafy, low-speed limits of the residential enclaves.
Exactly. You are never sharing a residential roundabout with someone trying to find parking for a concert.
I see. So it's not just putting a neighborhood next to a theme park. It's putting them on the same island, but routing the circulatory system of the roads so the two populations never accidentally mix.
That is exactly the design philosophy.
Which naturally leads us to the micro context. Where on this island is this theoretical quiet compartment? The sources point us directly to Yas Acres.
Right, Yas Acres.
And the documentation heavily leans on the fact that the Orchids isn't just some standalone tower in the sand. It sits inside an already established, mature community.
And honestly, that is arguably the most valuable piece of data in the entire set of materials.
Really? More than the floor plans or the finishes?
Oh, without a doubt. In the UAE real estate market, buyers constantly face what we call the empty field risk.
The empty field risk. I like that term. What does that look like in practice?
Well, when developers launch early phases of a master plan, buyers are essentially purchasing a beautifully rendered hallucination.
A PDF with nice lighting.
Exactly. They see digital images of soaring trees, bustling cafes, and laughing children riding bikes. But the reality, upon handover, is that you are moving into an active construction site.
Right. You get the keys to your pristine new house, but the park across the street is literally a dirt pit.
Yeah, the local grocery store hasn't found a tenant yet. And the trees are these sad 3-foot-tall saplings tied to wooden stakes.
And for an investor who's just looking to, I don't know, flip a property, maybe that's acceptable.
Sure, they might not care. But for an end user, let's say a family with a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, that is devastating.
Because the timeline.
Exactly. If you have to wait 10 years for the neighborhood to physically mature, for the canopy to grow, for the community dynamics to actually settle, your children will have grown up and left for university by the time the rendering becomes reality.
Wow, yeah. You miss the entire window of utility for why you bought the house in the first place.
You do. You spend their childhood living next to a cement mixer.
That puts the Yas Acres context into sharp relief then. By placing the Orchids into an already functioning ecosystem, you bypass that entire decade of growing pains.
Precisely. The roads are paved, the neighbors are already out walking their dogs, the retail is operational, and the landscaping has actually taken root.
You are plugging a new asset into an established heartbeat.
It drastically lowers the lifestyle risk. The environment is a known, proven quantity. And in a rapidly developing region, that is a highly premium commodity.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the actual product plugging into that ecosystem. The Orchids is defined in our materials as a limited collection of villas and townhouses.
Yes.
And there is a very specific marketing tagline attached to this project launch. It says, "One last time."
The economics of that phrase are fascinating to me.
How so? It just sounds like standard marketing copy.
It's more than that. One last time is a structural declaration of scarcity. When a developer announces the final phase of a highly successful master-planned enclave, they are drawing a hard border around the supply.
Ah, so there is no phase 7 coming down the pipeline.
Exactly. No phase 7, no phase 8. The land bank for this specific product in this specific mature neighborhood is exhausted.
Which transitions the asset from a commodity that can be endlessly replicated into a finite collectible.
Right. And that changes the buyer psychology completely.
But, it's the format of the asset that really catches my attention here. When you look at luxury real estate in the UAE, the dominant visual is almost always vertical.
The super tall towers, yeah.
Exactly. It's a gleaming 80-story high-rise with a... It does. You have to really plan to go outside.
Exactly the point. The high-rise severs your connection to the earth. What Aldar is capitalizing on here is the realization that for growing families, true luxury is seamless indoor-outdoor utility.
The ability to just open a door.
Yes. It's the ability to slide open a glass door and let your child run onto actual soil and private grass while you remain in the kitchen making coffee.
Ground-level living removes all that shared infrastructure friction.
It replaces the grand lobby with a private driveway and the balcony with a garden. I mean, in a dense, rapidly verticalizing metropolis, private landed space is arguably the quietest, most highly guarded form of luxury.
Okay, let's put some hard numbers to that space because the sources give us a very specific architectural breakdown.
Let's hear it.
I want to walk through the formats, but I also need to flag a glaring discrepancy I found in the documents while preparing for this deep dive.
Oh.
What did you find?
Well, first, the formats. They are offering 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom townhouses, and then scaling up to larger 4-bedroom and 5-bedroom standalone villas. A solid family mix.
It is. But here's where it gets messy. I was cross-referencing our sources, and the official fact sheet PDF explicitly states there are 217 total units in this project.
Okay.
However, the text summary provided alongside it firmly states there are 194 total units.
I'm actually really glad you caught that.
It seems like a pretty big typo.
Rather than just writing it off as a typo, we really need to analyze what that discrepancy usually signifies in the pre-launch phase of a major development.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The public launch for the Orchids is slated for June 25th. Now, in the months leading up to a launch, a developer is quietly shopping the master plan to their VIP networks.
Right, institutional buyers, royal family offices, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
So you're saying the master plan itself is fluid up until the ribbon is actually cut?
Highly fluid. A drop from 217 units down to 194 usually signals wealth consolidation.
Wealth consolidation, meaning what exactly?
What often happens is an ultra-high net worth buyer will look at the plan and say, I don't want one of those 5-bedroom villas. I want you to take 3 adjacent plots, erase the property lines, and build me a massive custom estate.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. When the developer accommodates that request, the total unit count shrinks, but the physical footprint of the neighborhood remains exactly the same.
That tells us a massive amount about the sheer volume of capital entering this specific phase, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not just a mathematical error. It's evidence of early buyers customizing the neighborhood to fit enormous footprints before the public even gets a look.
Which highlights exactly why diligent buyers must independently verify the final master plan directly with the developer.
Absolutely. Because if early buyers have already cannibalized adjacent plots, the density and layout of your specific street might look very different than what the initial brochure suggested.
That is a phenomenal piece of due diligence for anyone listening. So regardless of whether the final count lands at 217 or 194, the formats themselves give us a clear window into the market positioning.
Yeah, let's look at the townhouse options.
Right. So the sources outline that the townhouses, the 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom formats, act as the sort of transition property.
Transitioning from what?
Well, they seem perfectly positioned as the bridge for that young family we discussed earlier. The ones suffering from the friction of high-rise apartment living.
Yes. It allows them to finally get their feet on the ground.
Exactly, without taking on the immense financial and maintenance burden of a 5-bedroom standalone villa.
They are the entry point into the Yas Acres ecosystem.
While the larger villas, the 4- and 5-bedrooms, are built for generational permanence.
Yeah, a 5-bedroom villa is the terminal point. It has the spatial capacity to house live-in, staff, aging parents, and multiple children all the way through their teenage years. It's a forever home.
Right. And, a home's layout only dictates the flow of traffic. It's the materiality that dictates the daily emotional experience of actually living there.
Materiality is huge.
So let's step inside one of these units. Looking strictly at the material board source we have, the design philosophy seems intensely focused on balancing high-end sophistication with heavy-duty practicality.
And that tension between luxury and family living always comes down to durability.
How do you mean?
Well, you can design a stunning living room with fragile imported marble, but the second a toddler drops a heavy metal toy on it, The illusion shatters. It chips. It cracks.
Right, and suddenly your luxury home looks worn out.
Exactly. So Aldar's material choices here are incredibly pragmatic. The primary flooring across the living spaces and bathrooms is a stone-look porcelain tile.
Which is brilliant from a thermodynamic standpoint in the UAE.
Oh, entirely. You want a material that stays cool underfoot.
Right, but real natural stone requires constant sealing. It stains easily if you spill wine, and it chips. Porcelain gives you the visual weight and luxury of stone, but with an almost impenetrable glaze.
It's bulletproof. And then look at how they treat the private, restful spaces. In the bedrooms, they pivot from the stone look to a timber effect porcelain tile.
Now that is interesting to me. Why not just use real engineered wood in the bedrooms if you want that warmth?
Because real wood expands and contracts violently with the humidity and the intense air conditioning cycles we have in the Middle East.
Oh, right, the swelling and warping.
Yeah, it requires acclimatization and delicate maintenance. A timber effect porcelain tile provides the psychological warmth and the visual grain of wood, which cues the brain that this is a soft, private space.
But you still retain the cooling properties and indestructible nature of ceramics.
Exactly. And they pair this with a timber-look laminate finish for the lower kitchen cabinetry.
Which anchors the wet areas with natural grounded textures.
Right. It ties visually to the private gardens outside. It blurs the line between the indoor kitchen and the outdoor greenery.
Now, I have to admit something. When I initially reviewed the premium positioning of this project, I fully expected the fixtures to be incredibly flashy.
Flashy like what?
Well, the current trend in high-end UAE real estate is heavily leaning into high-gloss brass or highly polished gold to just scream luxury.
Right. The very loud aesthetic.
Exactly. But looking strictly at our material sources, the metal hardware specified here is much more restrained. They are using brushed metal details, specifically a brushed bronze or nickel tone.
And that restraint is what separates mature design from trend chasing.
That's a great way to put it.
Because high-gloss brass is undeniably beautiful in a showroom, but it possesses a high level of visual noise. It demands your attention every time you walk into the room.
It's very loud.
By strictly utilizing brushed, matte hardware, the designers are enforcing a much calmer, warmer, and more timeless palette.
It's the whole quiet luxury aesthetic that's so popular right now.
Precisely. But it's also deeply rooted in maintenance.
Maintenance.
Think about the daily reality of a family bathroom. Polished brass shows every single water spot, every fingerprint, every smudge of toothpaste.
Oh, yeah. You'd be wiping it down 3 times a day.
But a brushed bronze finish is incredibly forgiving. It quietly supports the architecture of the room rather than competing with it.
It suggests that Aldar expects these interiors to look just as relevant and well-maintained in 2040 as they will at handover in Q3 2030.
Exactly. They are designing for the long haul.
Okay, so we've analyzed the macro geography, the scarcity of the units, the floor plans, and even the drawer handles. But a house doesn't exist in a vacuum.
No, it exists in a community.
Right. How do all these pieces actually move together? Let's take the community amenities listed in the sources, and instead of just reading them off like a dry catalog, let's stress test them.
I like that. How do we stress test it?
Let's map out a hypothetical day in the life for a resident here. Specifically, let's look at a typical Tuesday.
Tuesday. Tuesday is the ultimate stress test.
Why Tuesday?
Because anyone can design a beautiful Saturday. But Tuesday morning at 7:30 a.m. is where the friction of daily life usually breaks a community's design.
Okay, so Tuesday morning, the alarm goes off. In a typical neighborhood, the next hour is pure chaos.
Packing lunches, rushing to the car.
Fighting arterial traffic just to get to the school drop-off line, and then fighting traffic again to commute to work. It's miserable.
It is.
But the sources note a community school located directly within Yas Acres, and it's interconnected by a network of dedicated cycle tracks.
So that Tuesday morning transforms completely.
It really does. The school run is no longer a vehicular battle. It's a 10-minute, car-free bicycle ride on a protected path.
The psychological compounding of that single change is massive. By eliminating the vehicular school run, you lower the baseline cortisol levels of the entire household.
You start the day with fresh air and physical movement rather than road rage. Then we fast forward to the afternoon, let's say 4:00 p.m. School is out. In a vertical high-rise, kids come home, take the elevator up, and are basically confined to the apartment unless a parent actively escorts them down to a public park.
Right. They are trapped indoors.
But here, the sources list a whole ecosystem of amenities. We've got a splash pad, dedicated kids' play areas, a padel court, and a community gym.
All within a safe pedestrian bubble.
Exactly. A teenager can walk to the padel court with their friends, younger kids can safely navigate to the splash pad, and a parent can hit the gym all concurrently.
What you're describing there is the sociological concept of engineered collision points.
Engineered collision points. That sounds almost, aggressive.
It sounds academic, but it's actually a beautiful concept. It's like the water cooler effect in an office building.
Okay, so you're forcing people to cross paths naturally so a community forms without forced effort.
That is the exact mechanism. If you build a neighborhood with only private gardens and no shared premium amenities, neighbors never meet.
Right, they just drive into their garages and close the door.
Exactly. But by placing high-value amenities, like a state-of-the-art paddle court or a highly designed kids' water area in central community nodes, the developer acts as a social architect.
So you don't have to schedule an awkward play date with a neighbor you barely know.
No, you simply take your kids to the splash pad on a Tuesday afternoon. They naturally integrate with the other kids, and you strike up a conversation with the parent sitting on the bench next to you.
And over 3 or 4 years, those passive collisions form a deeply rooted social fabric.
Exactly. That's what makes a neighborhood feel alive.
And that fabric holds the community together as the day winds down. Tuesday evening might involve a walk to the community mosque for prayers.
Or a quick stop at the internal retail center because you forgot an ingredient for dinner.
Right. Or maybe attending a homeowners meeting in the multipurpose room. The infrastructure is designed to hold you in this comfortable, low-friction orbit for the entire work week.
Is the ultimate containment strategy for domestic stress.
I love that phrasing. But the beauty of this specific location is what happens when the work week finally ends. Tuesday is about grounding, but Saturday is where the macro context of Yas Island comes roaring back.
Oh, definitely. The weekends are a completely different gear.
Because the sources are very keen to remind us that living in Yas Acres means seamless access to the island's premier lifestyle offerings.
And the contrast is what makes the proposition so potent.
Yeah.
You spend your Tuesday in a quiet, pedestrian-friendly village.
Yeah.
But on Saturday morning, without ever packing a suitcase or driving to an airport, you can transition into a globally elite lifestyle.
It's kind of crazy. The sources outline a weekend that most people spend an entire year saving up for.
Oh, easily.
You can take a morning stroll along Yas Marina, surrounded by super yachts. You can play 18 holes of championship golf at Yas Links, which is literally right next door.
Or you can take the kids to Ferrari World or SeaWorld.
Right. Or spend the evening at the Yas Beach Club. It's all right there.
It creates a duality of existence. You have the total privacy and security of a grounded family home, layered directly on top of world-class tourism infrastructure.
Historically, you always had to choose.
You really did. You either lived in the noisy, vibrant city center to get the restaurants and entertainment,
or you moved 40 minutes into the quiet desert suburbs to get a garden and a good school.
Exactly. Yas Acres attempts to eliminate that compromise entirely by using the island's massive scale and intelligent zoning.
So if they have successfully engineered this dual lifestyle, the quiet Tuesday and the global Saturday, how should a listener evaluate this from a financial and investment perspective?
That's the critical question.
And I want to maintain a highly cautious tone here. We are analyzing a real estate product, not dispensing financial advice. We cannot and will not make any promises of guaranteed returns, rental yields, or massive capital appreciation.
And frankly, anyone promising massive overnight speculative gains on a product like this is fundamentally misunderstanding the asset class.
Oh, so?
Because the investment thesis for the Orchids rests almost entirely on the mechanics of scarcity and capital preservation.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that scarcity. Because at first glance, the UAE is building constantly. There is no shortage of new real estate.
True, there is no shortage of high-rise apartments, and there is certainly no shortage of sprawling, massive villa communities being pushed further and further into the deep desert on the outskirts of the city.
Right, the urban sprawl is very real.
But look at the specific parameters here. A low-rise, landed family home with a private garden situated within a mature, heavily landscaped community.
Okay.
And that community itself is located on a finite, globally recognized entertainment island that is rapidly running out of developable land.
That specific Venn diagram of features is incredibly rare.
Extremely rare, because land on an island is a hard physical limit.
Yeah.
You'd always build another tower. You can always pave another highway into the desert.
But you cannot easily manufacture more island-adjacent plots within a 10-minute drive to a major international airport.
Exactly. And that finite supply dictates the target demographic. This is not a product designed for the day trader of real estate looking to flip a contract in 6 months.
Who is it for then?
The target audience is heavily weighted toward end users. Families looking to park their capital in a primary residence where they intend to live for the next 10 to 15 years.
So the ROI isn't just financial, it's a lifestyle yield, if you will.
Yes, but financially, it also appeals to sophisticated investors with a long-term horizon, people who understand the stabilizing value of mature infrastructure.
Because when you buy into an off-plan project in the middle of nowhere, the value is highly volatile.
Exactly. The surrounding amenities might never actually materialize, but by buying the final phase of Yas Acres, the risk is mitigated.
The school is already there, the golf course is there, the mall is there.
Right. The investment play is about securing a rare asset in a proven location, backed by the brand reputation and delivery track record of a developer like Aldar.
Which means, if a listener fits that profile, if they are an end user or a long-term capital preservation investor, they need to be incredibly precise before they sign a booking form.
Due diligence is everything.
That brings us to the most actionable part of this deep dive, the pre-purchase checklist. Based strictly on the data we have, what are the critical questions a buyer needs to ask their broker or Aldar directly before handing over a deposit?
Well, let's start with the financials.
Okay, so the sources outline a potential 5-5-45 payment plan structure, which includes a 5% down payment.
And that is a very specific mechanism of financing that requires close scrutiny.
Let's break down how that actually works. A 5% down payment is relatively low to secure an asset of this size. It lowers the barrier to entry, certainly.
It does.
But it means 50% of the property value still needs to be paid over the next 4 years leading up to the Q3 2030 handover.
Right. And the listener needs to sit down with the developer and demand the exact milestone schedule for that 50%.
What should they be looking for in that schedule?
They need to ask, are the payments time-based, meaning you owe 10% every 6 months, regardless of what is happening on the ground? Or are they construction-linked?
Construction-linked meaning you only pay the next installment when the foundation is poured or the superstructure is complete.
Exactly. Construction-linked plans offer the buyer significantly more leverage and protection.
That's a great point to clarify. And then there is the 45% due at handover in Q3 2030. That is the moment the buyer needs to either have liquid cash or secure a mortgage.
Correct. But the purchase price isn't the only financial commitment.
Ah, right, the operational costs.
The silent killer in real estate is ongoing service charges. You must verify these.
Well, let's look at the sources. We don't have an exact locked-in number, but you generally have to estimate these costs. Let's say they run around 5 to 6 dirhams per square foot, just as an industry average for this kind of premium community.
Right, and you need to calculate what that actually means annually.
So for a 160 square meter townhouse, which is roughly 1,700 square feet, you could be looking at somewhere around 8,500 to 10,000 dirhams a year in service charges.
And the critical question to ask is what exactly those charges cover.
Does it cover the maintenance of the community pool, the landscaping of the common areas?
Exactly. The security, the upkeep of the cycle tracks, and more importantly, is that rate capped? Or does the developer have the right to escalate those charges substantially over the next decade? You must verify this in writing.
Excellent advice. Then we move from the financials to the physical specifics. We already analyzed the unit count discrepancy, the 217 units in one document versus the 194 units in another.
Right, the master plan fluidity.
A buyer cannot rely on a PDF they downloaded 3 months ago. They need to sit at the desk, look at the final master-approved blueprint, and ask exactly where their prospective unit sits.
Plot orientation is arguably as important as the floor plan itself.
Tell me why.
In the intense climate of the UAE, the direction your garden faces dictates its utility. A south-facing garden might get blasted by the afternoon sun, making it basically unusable in August.
Right.
While a north-facing orientation might provide shaded ambient light, perfect for an evening barbecue.
You also need to confirm the community rules. If you buy a corner plot, are you legally allowed to build an extension in 5 years?
Can you add a private pool? Are pets allowed? What is the rental demand if you ever need to lease it out?
These are all questions that need concrete answers before you sign. What happens historically in the market when a final phase project like this launches? Because the public launch is coming up on June 25th, and it sounds like the window for deliberation might be incredibly tight.
Highly anticipated, landed properties and established communities tend to move with ferocious speed.
Really? even in this price bracket.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
The scarcity is obvious to the market, and there is often a massive amount of pent-up demand from people who missed out on the earlier phases of Yas Acres.
So you will not have 3 weeks to mull over floor plans after the launch date.
No. If you intend to secure a specific asset, say one of those rare 3-bedroom end units with a side garden, you need this checklist completed, your financial parameters locked, and your expression of interest registered well before the doors even open.
Preparation meets opportunity.
Always.
So, bringing this entire analysis home, what we've discovered by rigorously stress testing the sources for the Orchids by Aldar is that this is not a conversation about the mere price per square foot
No, it's not.
or the color of the laminate kitchen cabinets. It is a highly deliberate, long-term lifestyle architecture.
It is the physical manifestation of trying to solve the modern family dilemma. It provides the grounding, the privacy, and the psychological safety of a traditional neighborhood, while seamlessly integrating the hyperconnectivity and world-class entertainment of Yas Island.
Which leaves me with a final, slightly provocative thought for you to ponder long after this deep dive ends.
Let's hear it.
As Yas Island continues to solidify its position as a hyper-dense global epicenter for tourism, the volume of transient visitors is inevitably going to skyrocket over the next decade.
Without doubt.
In that future, how will the definition and subsequently the financial value of a quiet, low-rise, heavily landscaped island retreat evolve?
That is a fascinating question.
Will these quiet, grounded enclaves, hidden away behind acoustic and geographic bulkheads in the middle of a global entertainment machine, become the ultimate, highly guarded luxury of the region?
That is the exact tension that makes this project so compelling. The market will be pricing that paradox for the next 10 years.
It's definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Orchids at Yas Acres. We encourage you to keep exploring the material, ask the hard questions on your due diligence checklist, and as always, keep diving deep.